Slate, and it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been a while since we've done a show together.
Yep.
We get the U.S. Open, and then we did the quick one Thursday, but yeah, it's good to be back, and hopefully you can help me. I'm gone through like a 2-week, really, really bad swing of DFS for the most part, so I'm ready to get back into it.
So a couple of things. This week is MMA live final week.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so that is on Saturday, and I've been, the salaries came out yesterday, so I've been fiddling around already, and I'll do a preview of that within the next couple of days, and that'll be kind of exciting. That actually is an early start on Saturday. It's an 11:30 a.m. Eastern time start, and with any luck, I'll be in the. The plan is, again, we're supposed to be moving into our Hamptons house this weekend. If everything goes well with the hospital, we'll be doing that, and maybe I'll be sweating it from there. Again, I'm not going to be at the live final. There's actually a couple of other guys that aren't going to be there as well. So we'll see how that goes. I already have a couple of ideas, and I'll talk through some of them in the next couple of days. The other thing, and unfortunately, this has kind of just showed up as I launched the site, launched DraftKings. You mentioned, you've had a little bit of a 2-week downswing. I mean, I haven't had a lot of luck either, especially in kind of the big buy-ins. I actually did cash a couple of times in the last week, but nothing really close. I opened up today's freaking lobby, and there's a freaking 33-33 with $2 million for first. And I'm like, ugh, I really have no business playing it, okay? But I'm sitting there just staring at it.
Wait,
and it's
what?
Yeah.
Oh, it's $1 million for first, the $2 million guarantee. Oh my God, that's tonight. Oh God.
Yeah, and it's like literally like the worst time of like considering how I'm seeing the board, like to play it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's just like kind of hard to not play it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, So I don't know what I'm gonna do. Maybe I'll do one of those things that's like supposedly the smart people do. I'm actually see what I think of the slate to decide whether I actually want to fire that thing or not. But I mean, it says 1 million for first. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. I reserved the spot for now just so I had it.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna see. We're gonna see. I mean, that's obviously way out of where I usually play.
If there's anything that makes it bad, it's just it's a crazy payout structure that I'm looking at it now. I forgot. I knew this was coming up, and I just forgot that it was today. But boy,
and it's like just experts everywhere. So, but that's.
I don't know. It's not that many people. I never mind these kind of fields. The problem is I've got way too many thirds and fourths in these fields.
I'll take
you know what I mean? The payouts go 100 like down to 20,000.
I will sign for fourth, believe me.
But we'll go. It's actually a horrible feeling though, because you really aren't getting your equity based on where you finish compared to the first place. You know what I mean? It's a pretty shitty feeling when you have a chance.
What's the
I actually haven't looked through the whole thing, but I'm
looking at it right now because I saved the spot.
Was it $1 million, then 150, right?
Oh, what a country!
And then 75. Then was it 75, 25 or something like that?
Pull it up. Hold on a minute.
It was like that last year.
Yeah, we'll put it back. So it's $1 million for first plus a semifinal ticket, and then 125 for second, and then 70, 50, 40, 30, 20, 15. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough. I will tell you this also. I'll go over this, but But in my MMA thing, it's 10,000 for 15th and 250,000 for first.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. That's what these structures are like. I'm sorry, I'm just grabbing my wallet because I need
the MMA final is actually a little bit better. It's like 250, and then I think maybe like 100, then 60. I mean, so at least it's a little more.
It's a little bit better,
amenable, but still, it's the gap from 10th to freaking 15th to first is pretty gruesome. But hey, listen, we'll go through the slate. We were going to do it anyway. And, worst case, I won't. Not worst case, maybe I'll play it, maybe I won't. But we'll definitely take a look at it.
Yep. Well, I'm excited actually to play it now because I'm not going to not play the 33-33, even if I sell off most of my action or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's for $1 million for first and a baseball,
we're going to have to find a way to play it, right?
With less than 1,000 people, I think that it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, we're just going to have to play it.
Yeah, okay. Unless you just want to be the guy who never does. But okay. With all that said, are you ready to jump into it?
Yeah.
All right.
Now let me share my screen here.
All right.
Can I share my screen? Is it one of those again? Wait, we figured that out.
We're back to normal now.
Hold on. Oh yeah, I just gotta. Okay, there it is. Hold on. Share screen. There it is. Okay. All right. First of all, weather-wise, I don't see any issues as far as like what Roth said. There's a couple of tiny things, but so far so good there. I always like to double check that before we get going. And I guess first game is right here in New York. We have two good pitchers. You have Cole versus Kirby. I guess I'll start. I have Cole right now as the top play on the slate, and I have Kirby as kind of a secondary option. It is very tempting to play him though at that price. So I'm curious to get your opinion on that, and I'm definitely not getting into either of the hitting options here. So I currently have Cole as the best pitcher, and then we want to get your opinion on whether you think Kirby's playable as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that playable. Like, I don't think Cole is the best pitcher necessarily. I think we're gonna have to I'm gonna have to sit through this one because I'm still maintaining that I think that there's something going on a little bit with this guy. Even though it doesn't mean he doesn't pitch well, there's something feels like a little bit wrong to play 10-9, pay 10-9 for him when he's had some decent games, but he hasn't paid off like this type of salary in a really long time. I mean, he had 25 the last game, and you would take 25 in general, but that's not like we used to get 30s regularly. He hasn't put up a 30 basically. He had two this season, and they were at the very beginning. So I'm a little bit concerned about the idea of playing 10-9 for him. At the same time, Kirby doesn't, you're not always in love with the usual strikeouts is what everybody was saying about him. And then he's, he struck out 10 guys in the last game. He's put up 30 twice in the last three. It's the Yankees that have not been like world beaters. And Kirby's actually, I think, is totally reasonable. So I have both these guys as at first, I like them. I want to see what else we can do, but I actually think I might have more Kirby and Cole at first look. And maybe that's a mistake, maybe not, but I trust those. I trust Kirby to at least, like, you have to hit off of him. You can't. He's not going to walk his way to a bad game. He's not going to get wild. You have to actually hit him, and I think this is a reasonable enough spot to play him. All right, start it off. St. Louis, Washington.
Okay. I currently in my pitchers am not getting to either of these guys. Kind of my top. I guess I have a top six. I guess. I'm not that either of these guys are particularly awful plays, but I just don't have them rated in the top six. I'm getting I don't want to say for some reason, but I'm getting some kind of sprinkles on St. Louis, both on DraftKings and in FanDuel. Not at the top of the list or anything like that, but again, I have about 10 teams, actually like 6 to 7, top stacks, and I'm getting to St. Louis is kind of like the bottom of those, just to kind of just throw that out there. So that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm just not quite getting to Gore and Montgomery, although, you know what I mean? Like, they both look reasonable. Gore at 8K and Montgomery at 7,400 in a vacuum seem like decent plays, I guess. But they're just not popping into my top six. And then, as I mentioned, I do have St. Louis just kind of just threatening to poke its way into the top group.
Yeah. Like it's, we all just see this every time with St. Louis. So there's a lefty, they've got a million righties. Let's go after him. It's weird though, because I have a lot of respect for, I think Gore is like his talent level. I think he's good. I just think that he's not always going to figure it out. And it is a tough matchup. There's like slight wind. I'm kind of curious where it ends up because it looks like it's like almost like a crosswind right now. But I'm open to the idea of St. Louis. I just don't feel in love with either of these spots. And I think Montgomery is like completely reasonable, but you're just got to know that you got the low strikeout situation. I will just do a quick refresh of let's just see where they hit. They're much better. They strike out a lot less they strike out more against lefties than they do righties. Yeah, so they're middle of the pack strikeout wise against lefties, whereas they're the second toughest team to strike out for righties, and they don't hit the ball very much off of them. So I think this is actually a fine spot like for Montgomery, but it's just where's the ceiling kind of a conversation, and that's pretty much all I've got. I don't think I can get to Mackenzie Gore, but Montgomery I have as an okay play. That's probably a fringier one that ends up on the outside looking in, but. To be honest, I feel that way about a lot of guys today. So I'm curious to see what I'm going to do by the end of it.
Okay.
All right. St. Louis, Washington out of the way. So we have Pittsburgh, Chicago.
Yeah. So I'm not getting to either of these pitchers in DFS. Obviously, Stroman's been doing really well, but he's He's not really a big DFS guy. I mean, he did have a big game a few starts back, but in general, it's just not the guy you want to play in for high upside. And I guess that's pretty much all I have. I mean, I really not getting to Oviedo. 6,200. I mean, I guess I would have made worse plays, but just not getting to him today. And similarly, hitting wise, I mean, they're just both teams are kind of out on the outside looking in for me. So these guys are not really in my mix.
Yeah, I mean, again, it sounds like a broken record. To totally agree with you. You may end up at the end of the day playing like Mike Taubman if he's leading off again at 2.4. I think that's just a reasonable price, but again, it takes up an outfield spot. But I mean, he had a nice game yesterday, and then that's pretty much all I have from this game. I think both. Actually, I think if you're like max entering, you're definitely playing some of each of these pitchers. Probably more Oviedo, to be honest with you, but I don't think it's ideal for if you're playing 3 lineups or something. I don't think I would run into either of these guys. It is 79, just for the record, it's 8 degrees blowing in from left, nothing special, but it is almost 80 degrees in Pittsburgh. Everywhere in the country is warmer than California. It's just crazy.
That's pretty funny.
Oakland and Cleveland. All right, Cheats, we got a good rhythm here with you starting off, so why don't you keep going there?
So it looks like it's sort of a bullpen game from Oakland with 2 pretty reasonable pitchers, considering that Oakland is, obviously just an atrocious pitching team. But I think that this is a pretty good shot from them actually to try to win this game. I mean, I'm not going to play these guys, but I'm just kind of looking at this. The reason I bring it up is because Cleveland is actually showing up in all my different metrics as kind of a top stack, whether it be value or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just have this, this voice in the back of my head. You saying like just try to avoid these bullpen games in general. And not only that, but Cleveland itself is a team that typically like to avoid nowadays as far as asking for all kinds of power here. So I'm just kind of interested to see where ownership kind of comes in on this. The other side of this, Savali, he's a guy that I don't usually play, but he's showing up as a pretty good play today. I have him as one of the top 6, kind of below my top 2. But listen, it makes sense attacking Oakland, and yet though on the other side of the ball of the plate, I have Oakland is really cheap on DraftKings.
Yep.
So I think both sides of this game, from the Cleveland side, in other words, Cleveland hitting, Cleveland pitching, Oakland hit. You know what I mean? Like I think everything is kind of in play here. And it just, I guess, depends where ownership comes in. I mean, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, well, I've never said don't stack against a Oakland bullpen game. This is the worst bullpen in the history of baseball. I know they've been a little bit better lately, and they're trying to limit the damage a little bit by playing Waldachuk in front of Medina. But Medina has been arguably the worst pitcher in baseball, and Waldachuk, it's just you're only going to get probably 2 innings out of him. So it's not exactly a bullpen game. It's more of a starter opener type of thing.
Right.
I am totally good with Cleveland as a stack. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on Savali, even though I understand the slew of reasons why it makes sense. I would be more on the side of getting Oakland really cheap. And I don't know. I mean, I could name a lot of names, and they're all like free. Ruiz leads the league in stolen bases. He's going to steal 1 million bases this year. He's reasonable. Noda, probably in order actually of the lineup is how I actually have them ranked between Noda. Well, I guess Seth Brown and Rooker. I would have Seth Brown maybe a little bit ahead of Rooker, but they're really close. Jace Peterson at 2.3. I mean, even Blade at 2.1. If you want to make a stack and you want to spend up for 3 big guys from another thing and then pay up at pitching, I actually think you could make a good case for a full Oakland stack here. This is another one where the wins are I'm gonna have some. I have to see what happens later because they're blowing in from right field, but they're kind of angling. It's almost like a crosswind. If it's a crosswind, I'd be much more likely to play the lefties. If it's just coming in at 10 miles an hour from right field, so it's a little harder to play the upside for power. So maybe we'd lose a little bit of interest. But I right now have Cleveland as one of the tops, and I have Oakland. The Oakland mini stack is extremely valuable, particularly if you can find a team you like stacking on the infield. Oakland on the outfield makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, these Cleveland guys are all really cheap. You have
mostly stack them on the infield.
Yeah. So these Oakland, sorry, I meant the Cleveland guys are really, really cheap. You have like Ramirez at 5,200, but everybody else is under 4K. And you could, if you feel like it, you could then play Cole with a higher price pitcher and get in pretty much whatever you want. Which okay, so that's going to make them popular as well. But nonetheless, they definitely, I can see why they look really good. I didn't realize how poor Medina had been pitching. So that's yeah. I mean, listen, it can be frustrating playing Cleveland too. Like, oh yeah, they scored 5 runs and nobody had an extra base hit. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely, it's totally true.
But yeah, this looks like it kind of builds itself a little bit. Not that it has to be Kirby, but you know what I mean. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, we have the Cincinnati game, right?
Yeah, you have Cincinnati, which has been kind of being treated as Coors East for a while now, I guess. But so you get Cincinnati that's showing up like once again as a good value stack, both on DraftKings and on FanDuel against Colorado. We have Noah Davis pitching, and then on the Cincinnati side, I have Lively as actually one of the top 6. Even though it's interesting, this is at Cincinnati, but Colorado is just really just not good. So Lively, Cincinnati. And this is what the world is now. I mean, we're just like playing like Cincinnati pitchers and Cincinnati hitters, I guess. But that's what I'm getting right now. Lively is kind of like one of the top 6, not my top 2. And I have Cincinnati is just incredibly playable on both sides.
Yeah. So the problem, like there's a few things about this. One, it's very weird because Cincinnati's like a team that we were playing at, like all of these guys we played at like 2K, and now they're all like 5K. It is a good matchup, but they're expensive. They're not. This is not like a sneak in a cheap Cincinnati stack or something, which is part of what made them appealing. So when they're going to be chalky and expensive, it feels like you're supposed to go somewhere else. It's a really good spot. I don't think that Davis is very good, but he hasn't, like, in all fairness, he wasn't like he was awful. Colorado has the second worst bullpen in baseball, probably. Part of that's because they're in Colorado. You do have pretty strong 13-mile-an-hour winds coming in from left field right now, which would make me want to just focus on the lefties. So that's what I've got written is the lefties. And then also Cincinnati is way too cheap on FanDuel specifically. So I would put them more over there. And I'm okay with Lively. He fits into a very similar category as Savale and Montgomery for me, but probably just enough to where he ends up on the outside looking in most of my big lineups, even though he might make some other ones.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed over the weekend, but who came back is Joey Votto and basically just smashed the ball all weekend long, I think.
Yeah, he came back. I thought it's weird because I thought he came back yesterday because his price was 2K, but they just didn't change his price, I guess.
Yeah, he was 2 for 3 with a home run. He just murdered.
Yeah, yesterday was his first game.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He had a big game. But he's I don't know. He was 2K yesterday on FanDuel. Today on FanDuel, he is 2.6, so still pretty good price.
Yep.
All right. Sorry, not Colorado. Boston, Minnesota. I'll go real quick on this one because I don't have a ton of interest. Bailey Ober is really expensive. Cutter Crawford is like, if we're going to talk about all these fringy-ish pitchers, I just think he deserves okay, he's 50, on the road, he's 5,400. If you want a dumpster dive, and he's projected, like Sabership has him projected for more fantasy points right now than Marcus Stroman, which I'm kind of surprised is not leading him to look like he's even more owned than he's going to be. But he's 5,400, and at the same time, I kind of like sort of a similar vein to the A's, although Buxton is back now. Actually, I guess it's not because they've got some other guys back now, but you still have Julian, cheap, Kirilov, Kepler, Royce Lewis, all very reasonably priced. But again, you got 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from left, from right center. Every wind is blowing in today for some reason. It is 87 degrees. So that should offset some of that. But I guess you'd want the righties more in that situation. I just don't know if I could bring myself to really want to stack Minnesota, and I don't think I can really play Crawford. But I certainly would do it in some fringier tournaments. Just not my I can see the argument for both, and that's pretty much all I have in this game. I'm not playing Bailey over at 9,200 today.
Yeah, I currently have Cole Crawford as my pairing. Yeah, right now. And yet, unfortunately, as you just kind of alluded to, on the other end of the plate, I like Minnesota also. With the exception of Buxton, everybody else is really cheap. So I kind of like both of them. I like Crawford at 5,400, and Minnesota really just hasn't really hadn't done so much. But you get in the weather and how cheap they are on the other side. Also, I mean, I would probably play both sides of this game. So Cutter, Crawford pitching, and then Minnesota on more DraftKings. I have them than FanDuel. As far as actually, I have them a little bit on FanDuel too. So
yeah, they make sense because the pricing on DraftKings and the positions make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So and that's interesting that Sabersim has him projected for that. I guess I don't know, against Minnesota really hasn't done much.
They're terrible against righties. They are better than they were because Buxton got back, but they have really struggled against righties.
So with Buxton at 5K, then let's see, who else do we have? Who else will we play for Minnesota? You mentioned some of the names here, but who
Julian.
Yeah, Julian, Royce Lewis, Kurlov,
Kepler. And then every now and then they bat Joey Gallo lead off. That I'd be interested in.
Yeah, even Correa 4,300 is reasonable.
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable all the way through, including Willie Castro even down at the bottom, but he's not. You probably want him to be batting a little bit higher.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one, which I believe is Arizona Milwaukee. Sheets, why don't you jump in on this one?
Yeah, so the first time that I updated my projections and ran them, I was getting, I think, 92% Arizona in my stacks. Then I did kind of an update, and I was about to run them again. I don't have them standing out as much, but I still have them as my number one stack on both sites. Yeah, so that's just where it is. And I'm not getting to the Ryan Nelson, although I'm tempted. This guy's not the worst. So I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing Arizona right now, number one overall, both DraftKings and FanDuel.
Yeah, that's interesting because they don't have a high run total. They don't have. They're really expensive, so I'm kind of surprised about that. Wow, I mean that is interesting. I do think that looking at the run total does seem a little bit low. You really like lefties, and we like lefties in general in Milwaukee. Obviously, Corbin Carroll. Actually, all these guys. Finally, they might be letting Perdomo lead off, which is something they should have been doing a long time ago, maybe. I actually think I like the other side a little bit better. I think I had more on Milwaukee's side, but I think both of these are fine. I don't think that they're my priority stacks. I think the problem with stacking with Milwaukee on big sites, as I always mention, is they just don't walk enough. But their lineup is they have a little bit better than it was, and they're really cheap. So maybe more of a mini stack situation. But I have Milwaukee, and I'm definitely going to look a little deeper into Arizona. The only thing I just say is that Ray hasn't been hit hard. I don't think like at all. We've talked about this guy like he's like the worst thing ever over and over again. He had like the one bullpen game. Well, he only faced 6 batters against the Dodgers. But basically every other game he's been like, I mean, they haven't been touching him. Like he gave up 4-0, 3-4-0, 4-1. So I guess they're getting into him a little bit, but not enough to where I would want to make him the priority to stack against with a decent bull. Well, actually the bullpen's pretty weak now, but okay, I got to revisit Arizona because I didn't have them very high. I did have Milwaukee as one of the teams I was considering. I'm gonna look a little further into Arizona and see if I want to do that because I don't have a ton to like here because this has not been there's no like things. The things that stand out seem a little like too obvious and not such great spots. I don't know. I just don't like love a lot of it.
All right, I will tell you this: we get to Chicago, Texas. I think this is one of the slates. I think this is when you were at the U.S. Open. I kind of did this on my own. Mm-hmm. Worked out pretty well. I actually played Cease against the Dodgers at no ownership, and he had a decent enough game. I mean, he struck out 10 guys. It just seemed like so cheap for him. Like when he was 8,200, even though it was against the Dodgers. It was weird. I remember I was doing the preview because I know you weren't here, and I was looking through his game logs. He hadn't done anything. And I'm like, can I really play a guy who's just really hasn't done anything? And I just kind of did it anyway. I mean, I have to say that 7,700 for Dylan Cease just seems kind of criminal. And it's now I sound like one of those guys that's like relying on like either name value or my impression where I think he should be instead of like relying on what he's actually been doing. But I don't know. It looks good to me to play him at 7,700. Listen. Obviously, Texas is always filled with hitters and stuff like that. But I'll get 4 strikeouts out of freaking Adolis Garcia if I feel like it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of like Cease here and none of the hitting.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm just looking at Texas's numbers for the year's ratings. Well, they definitely have some power and all that stuff. They strike out like middle of the road. It's not like they don't strike out at all. And like we know about Cease, he can create this is what he's always been good at. Like he's a really good strikeout pitcher. And it's funny because we say he hasn't done anything, but his numbers are basically better than the other guys in the 7K ranges are. Like
right?
Starts, like his strikeouts per inning are awesome, and he hasn't really had like the horrible games either. Like he had a couple of bad ones in there, but actually he's been like reasonable for this price, and I think there's more upside on that. So I like the Cease call sheets. I think that's one I can definitely work with. Obviously, Texas makes us a little bit nervous. This Eovaldi at 11-1 is just like a shock to the system to see him as the most expensive pitcher on a slate. Not that he hasn't deserved it or pitched really well this year. Just kind of shocking to see. I don't think I'm going to do anything with the bats in this game. I do think that if you were playing multiple lineups, that getting a little bit of a Texas stack is always a good idea. No ownership and winds blowing out to right field and all that stuff. But I think that I'm sort of with you on the Cease idea, and that's pretty much all I'm going to end up with from this game.
I will say this. I mean, listen, I don't feel like playing Eovaldi at like 11 million either, but if there's a spot to play him, I mean, like it's against Chicago.
It's true. It's
true. Probably get 15 strikeouts. You know what I mean? Like very possible. But I 11-1. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about like the other side of it a little bit, just because
play Chicago a little bit.
Just I was thinking about it, but I can't quite pull the trigger. Especially against a righty. If you give me a lefty, then I'll consider it. Maybe you could play Gavin Sheets at 2K. There's your one play.
So here's the question. Okay, so we have Mets going against Houston. You have Verlander going back to Houston, right? So does he have is it Verlander's got tricks, or is he just going to get lit up? I guess that's the.
Why would he get lit up? Why would he
I have no idea. I have no idea why he would get lit up. He was fine against the Yankees the other day when I saw him.
And Scherzer completely dominated the Houston yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he's fine. I think I'd rather play. Cease, honestly, though. Verlander he's close to this group for me, but it's just not quite good. Maybe just name value. I just don't feel like playing pitchers against Houston. I don't know. Valdez, he's just as usual for me, unfortunately, not getting into my top group. So for me, it's going to be both these pitchers are good enough to keep me off the other guys, and both hitters are good enough to get me off the pitchers.
Yeah, I like both these pitchers, and I'm not really going to budge that most. I mean, maybe I'll change my mind about this, but I'm almost positive that one of these guys will be in my main lineup. And I know it's weird because they're totally different types of plays. I do worry a little bit that with the lack of it's just the lack of, and part of it's because he's a good pitcher. Like he's pitching more, he pitches the contact more often. We also don't know, he hasn't like really had like the full stretch out game in a while, which is a little nerve wracking.
Oh,
Verlander, like just the
Verlander pitched 107 pitches.
No. Sorry. I meant more like innings wise. We're used to seeing him pitch 7-8 innings occasionally.
Okay.
7 innings all season. Oh no, he pitched 8 innings and won that one game. That's not true. Against Cleveland. He threw a million pitches. I know. It's a little worrisome that it's taking him without walking anybody that many pitches to get through 6 even. Like, you know what I mean? Without walking anybody or giving up hits. So it just seems like a lot of deeper counts. It's just something to consider, but he's 7,300. I'm not going to overthink these things in general. I want to play these guys when they're at these prices. And the truth is 20 fantasy points would be terrific tonight. Like none of these other guys do I feel great about. Why wouldn't I want to play some Verlander?
Oh, hell, I mean, you told me Verlander was going to get 20. I would probably sign for that.
Yeah, I think that you would at 7,300.
And you know what? Okay, so here's the problem, though. Not the problem. So I liked him against the Yankees, and I played him against the Yankees. I was very happy with his result, actually. When I was looking through it, I mean, I was listening to some content that day, and everybody was fading. Everybody's like, Verlander's done. And it looks like the ultimate freaking recency bias thing. Listen, it just look at the matchups. Okay, when he was against Cleveland, he was just
at Colorado and at
right.
Yeah.
And I said, if you could create the two worst spots, it would probably be at Colorado and at Atlanta. Like just the way it's going to be sometimes. I mean, every other start in this kind of like area just is fine at this price. And that was at 8K. I mean, now it's at 7,300.
Right.
And not was Houston that much better than the Yankees? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I guess maybe you're right. Maybe I prefer. Oh, I know what's going to happen. I was about to say maybe I prefer Verlander to Cease, and then I just hear you in the back of my head. I'm just play them both.
For what it's worth, Houston has
play them both. That'll be the end of it.
Houston has an average strikeout rate with the fifth lowest walks. The fifth lowest on base percentage of the season against right-handed pitching. So let's not overrate these teams just because they have a name on their. And also, there's no Jordan Alvarez in that lineup, which that one swing is a game changer. You know what I mean? That 3-run home run, or you get out of the third inning and you have no runs allowed. Like that's what changes games. So yeah. I actually am starting to talk myself into it even more. All right, San Diego, San Francisco sheets. What do you got?
I have literally nothing. I have neither pitcher. I have neither set of bats.
Neither pitcher, neither set of bats. I feel like we're supposed to have some interest in the hitting because of some of the other stuff on the slate.
Okay.
But even more win than usual. San Francisco doesn't really mean anything. I don't know. I've always, Lugo and DeScalfani actually, you know what's funny is like early in the season there was probably a time where we'd be talking about Lugo as like a must play here, but he's just coming back. I also was not one of those people who was as high on Lugo as maybe the rest of the people were, but and DeScalfani hasn't been very good. The worst team against right-handed pitching in terms of bat, like the Padres are hitting like 100 points lower than some teams. They're hitting like 200 off of righties. Kind of amazing with the lineup. And you go out there and spend all the money the Padres and the Yankees did, and look what happens. And the Mets did, and both teams would look just like garbage. San Francisco's been the hottest team in baseball, and I don't know. I can't quite find a way to play the hitting here. Like nothing quite makes enough sense, and it's in San Francisco, so that's enough to stay away. But I'll tell you what, I would like to find something to do, and maybe the answer is going to come up in our last game here.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing. I was hoping that. So I'll start. So Dodgers, Angels. Now here's like a little. I don't know. I literally just thought of this as this game was coming up. I don't know why I like thinking about this kind of stuff, but. See, the Dodgers don't play the. I keep thinking the Dodgers play the Angels a lot because they're both in LA, but they're in different, obviously in different leagues. And you think about this, like when the Dodgers are playing the Angels, and as they're currently constructed, you have what could be argued as like the best pitcher of all time, maybe. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And on one end, and you have maybe the best hitter of all time, like on the other end. Maybe, you know what I mean? And then you might end up with like.
Are you talking about Ohtani as the greatest hitter of all time?
No, that's what I'm saying. I was saying Trout, but then,
God, get out of here with Trout.
But okay, I'm just
sorry. It's an ongoing thing I always say about Trout. Sorry.
Right, I'm throwing with the WAR and all that stuff, and then you could argue that Ohtani might be the best player of all time. You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's true. When you put it, my fault. I interrupted you. My bad.
Yeah. So I mean, it's I don't know. It's kind of a fun game, like in the history of baseball, to kind of throw in there. Nonetheless, I mean, I really want. Like you said, I really want a team to lean on as far as hitting goes. And that's the first thing I looked at was, okay, let's just, screw it all. Just play the freaking Dodgers. And then I'm like, any chance of playing a righty? I'm like, no, right? And then I said, okay, let me look at Detmers. Can I attack Detmers? And I'm looking at his game logs, and it doesn't really get beat up that much. It's like a little annoying because I really want to find something to do. I guess the Dodgers are fine. That's the best I could come up with. Now, before I lose sight of this, I do have Kershaw as one of my top 6. Whether my top 2 or whatever, I don't know, but definitely in the mix. I don't care if he's facing the 2 top players of all time, whatever. Kershaw's always in play. And I guess what you have going for you is that I think he had a very poor. I don't want to say poor, but he had at least a pedestrian performance in his last game. Yeah, against the White Sox. I was sweating that one, actually. So, yeah, that happens from time to time. But, he's always got 30 in the arsenal. Definitely, he's smart enough to not serve up too much to Ohtani and Trout. You know what I mean? Like, I think. So, yeah, I like Kershaw. like the Dodgers. Are they my favorites? I don't know. Maybe they are. Actually, I don't know. But yes, definitely, I'm with you. I'm looking to find something, and the Dodgers are always a team I like to look to. But the lefty and the Detmers, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, yeah. So I'm just looking at some stats here for the Angels versus lefties because it is weird to see, and I'm not even saying it's wrong. It's just you wouldn't expect like for example, the Dodgers and Arizona. I'm sorry, the Angels and the Diamondbacks have the same projected run total today. That seems weird to me. You know what I mean? And I'm just trying to figure out am I missing something about like these Angels specifically against left-handed pitching? And it looks like no, like is the answer. They actually hit the ball well and they have a reasonable on base percentage, but it's actually they just mostly hit the ball well, but they strike out a lot. I think Kershaw's a very, very legitimate play. When you talk about Kershaw versus Cole, I think it's close. Like I really do. And the weirdest part of to say that Cole's actually showed more ceiling this year. I mean, sorry, Kershaw's actually had more of a ceiling this year. But I do think it's really close between those two. And, I wasn't going to play Cole and Kirby when we first started talking about this, but I think that I might end up playing some because I tell you what, this is a tough slate. Hey, you win the million tonight. You really did you did something.
I think you earned it. I do.
Yeah. So, I mean, to sum it up for me, I have so many guys in play as pitchers. And I don't know, and none that I feel like, not one that I feel like is, that's the guy I clearly want to play. I think my favorites, if I had to pick them right now, would be Kirby, Cease, Verlander, Curly Cease, Verlander in that price range, and then Cole, Verlander, Cole, Kershaw at the top, and Valdez. But I think that all three of those are very similar. So I don't have a really strong take, which usually what I do on those types of slates is I'll jump down in my pitching spend ups because I don't feel like anybody's in this awesome matchup that I need to spend up for. Maybe Valdez, you could argue, because the Mets have been all over the map this year. But I think that I might end up in that 7K range. And I think for hitting that I'm going to be, look, I like the Cleveland. I think that's a totally reasonable play. I like the Oakland mini stack on the other side. I like Cincinnati. And I like the Dodgers. And then I'm going to look further into the Milwaukee, Arizona game.
What is it? If you wouldn't mind looking this up or whatever, if you have anything for this, what is Seattle as far as their strikeout rate against righties?
Okay, I'll grab it right here.
It feels as though they would strike out a lot, but
it feels that they would be. I would guess the middle of the road from what I remember. Where are they? Where are you, Seattle? No, it's not middle of the road. It's a little. You're right. Seventh. Yeah, I mean that's the seventh in strikeout. He's not actually as low as you might think.
It's just that like I'm looking.
I mean, I'm not talking myself into some Cole.
Well, but on the other hand, I'm looking at this Cole's just his game logs, and he's pitched like however many games he's pitched. It's like only 2 games. Only 2 results that I'm like, I guess we had to have it,
feels a little bit lower outside of those games.
I mean, he played Boston at home. He couldn't generate much of anything. Dodgers is fine, but San Diego, I guess he's had some tough matchups. Mets, Red Sox, Dodgers, Padres. Baltimore's no bargain either. At Toronto's no bargain either. Tampa's no bargain either.
Yeah, I mean, if he was playing Baltimore today, I'd be all over him though. Just Baltimore always never hits against anybody for me. I'm gonna have to revisit it later and again be live at 6. But I think that for right now, I do think Cole is made a lot more in play than he was when I first started talking today.
What about the other one? What about the other end of the equation? What about the Evaldi after all that? I mean,
I can't do it. I don't even think he's like. I don't think I'd play him at like 9,100.
I know
against Chicago. I know he's been really good.
I mean, sometimes he's been really good. I mean,
he's been pretty good mostly though. Almost most of the whole season. I mean, the overall numbers are pretty good.
Only 4 strikeouts in 5 innings against the Tigers.
I mean, he's not going to have a perfect game every game, but
no, he's not. But Pittsburgh, Tampa, I don't know.
It's going to be tough. So maybe
hopefully, just for fun, let me do a Saber Sim build. Again, this is I did one before and I ended up with all this Arizona stuff. But let me see. But I updated projections since then. So let's see what I would get Let's just build MMA. We'll build like 150 lineups just to see. I have to imagine that there's not that much change. I'd have to think that it's still going to be all this Arizona, and I'd have to really figure out why that is. So I'm trying to think of what the builds are going to look like. I'm guessing. What is it going to? They're going to give me all the Cutter Crawford? Is that the story?
Maybe that's the right idea. By the way, actually, it's hard with Crawford though because he can literally just pitch 3 innings and pitch well and be done.
Oh, really? That's one of the things. That's
pitched 5 innings one time this season.
He's what?
Pitched 5 innings one time this season.
Oh, that's not good.
No, but he's also pitched in relief and he's been an opener, so it's like kind of hard to judge by his game. I think it's only been one time. It might have been.
All right, so like basically all the Arizona as I mentioned. Okay, so let's just see what
they're going with this Arizona thing because I don't think Arizona is getting ownership, right? Outside of Carroll, I don't think they're going to be owned.
Well, yeah, Arizona it looks like decent amount of ownership here, but let's just see what
not crazy.
So let's see first of all the pitchers. It would be
Cole.
Well, 38% Cole and 24% Kershaw, but there's some of these funny lineups with Gore and Savali. That's fun. You know what I mean? Like those are. But Cole, top pitcher, probably with the field, I suppose. Then Kershaw, Verlander, and Crawford, and Cease. These are the 3 values, at least, that we identified that made sense. And as far as stacks go, Arizona, like by a lot, and then St. Louis, of all things. So,
yeah.
And of those, let's just take a look and see what we did. And mostly 5-mans. It says of the 150 stacks, 150 liners, 130 of them were 5-man. And as far as which of them are 5-man stacks, 44% of lineups were 5-man stacks for Arizona. And to identify it by player, we'd be getting the majority. Hold on, all players. That's all batters. All batters exposures. Corbin Carroll, like 58% of a $5,700 Corbin Carroll. Wow. Christian Walker.
It's strange. It's a very unusual day where the team that is extremely expensive and has one of the lower run totals is the most popular team, or so popular. It's kind of surprising.
Here's another thing we could check. Check this out. So
that's the over in that game right below. It's still 9 because that's the one thing I would say is that I've gotten from this is that the Diamondbacks Brewers game I feel like should have a higher run total. I don't think 9.
Wait, there's one other thing I want to show you. Hold on. Give me one sec. What I want to do is check for outliers. This is like literally my raw thing. Kind of see if there's like outliers. No, it looks like it's pretty well across the board. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. As far as projections go. So it's not like Sabresom's like all over Arizona or something like that, which sometimes
happen.
Sometimes distorts things. But so yeah, that just seems to be I don't know. Seems to be the case right now. So
it definitely seems like their run line should be higher than 4.2.
Which also means like you mentioned that like if it is across the board and we're getting all this, they're probably going to end up being owned.
They're going to be owned, but that means why the hell is their run total 4.2? What is
what could be, like you said, is that the rest of the slate stinks too. Like the only other one competing is like the Angels. And who wants to play the Angels against Kershaw? Right. So I guess that's the deal.
Right.
I guess they're the highest run total that's not facing an ace pitcher.
Right. Wait, you mean no? Because no. It's the opposite. It's because it's still one of the lowest run totals not facing an ace pitcher.
I thought they were the highest run total.
No, they have a low run total. Like Cleveland has a high run total.
In Arizona.
Cleveland is 5.6, Arizona is 4.2.
Sheetbot Centro DFS MLB projections have been updated.
Oh, yeah,
should be available on SaberSim in a few minutes.
It's kind of weird to me, but hey, I support it. I just don't understand how there's ownership also. That's the one other thing I can't figure out. The one thing they do have, like, they can steal bases and they can hit home runs. So
all I could say is, I don't know. Listen, props out to the industry. And I was telling my friends, you were watching the U.S. Open the other day, mm-hmm. and at the time it was like Wyndham Clark and Ricky Fowler were like tied for the lead or something like that. And I told them, you never believe this, but in DFS, like those are like basically the 2 most popular golfers.
It was ridiculous, and it was the one thing I really didn't enjoy is that right away and by the way, Xander was the other chalk.
Right, I mean,
10 under right away or 8 under right away. It was really weird that the entire top of the board were like the mega chalk cash game.
Right, I mean, it's how impossible that is to get right like that.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. Was there actually any outlier towards the top? I don't think there was.
No, I don't think so.
Only Tom Kim. He had low ownership. I played him though. Like I mean, anyway.
Well,
all right.
you know what? We'll get that back with the Travelers.
Yeah,
and we'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, tomorrow after one of us wins $1 million tonight.
Are you around? By the way, you're around this week, pretty much.
Yeah. I'm here. There's going to be some days where I'm sort of moving around and doing some things, but I'm always going to be here for the streams.
Let's try again for maybe, I don't know what the schedule is tomorrow. Maybe we'll try. Well, I'll tell you this. If either of us are live, if we play this thing tonight, and if one of us is alive, there will be an impromptu, I promise you that.
Well, and I'm not promising myself that I'm going to jump on if it's my sweat. If it's your sweat, I'm for sure in there. Because if it's my sweat,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. If you're sweating,
I'll be a nightmare to deal with the late Patrick Wisdom home run thing.
What was the Patrick Wisdom? What was the other one? There was another one where you went.
There was the basketball one was pretty funny.
Until I got really mad. It was
the basketball one where you passed.
Which one it was?
The other team. It was the Zach LaVine.
Oh no, not the Zach LaVine, but the who's the guy that inbounded the turnover from the?
That was LaVine. LaVine passed it to the wrong team. I don't know. LaVine didn't pass it to the wrong team. They passed it to the wrong team. To his.
Oh, it was Garrett, some guy.
Garrett Temple passed it to LaVine.
Garrett Temple, right?
Who was his teammate like a couple months before for a couple years. So that was the part that was funny.
All right.
Anyway, all right. Good luck to everybody today. We'll see you at 6 Eastern.